Hello, welcome to this webinar. My name is Stuart Easton. I'm the CEO of Transparent Choice. And I've been asked by a marketing team to do this webinar because it's coming up to planning season again. And I was having a bit of a rant at them the other day about how important this time of year is, especially to the PMO, because this, the prioritization process and specifically the project prioritization meeting, the big meeting where you pick those projects, is, in my opinion, the biggest, most important event in the PMO calendar in the entire year. And so our marketing people challenged me to justify that, and here we are on a webinar. Hopefully this is going to take 15 minutes or so, maybe 20 minutes to go through. But during this webinar, I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think it's the most important meeting, and then a little bit about what I think a good meeting looks like, one that'll really help both the business and you personally as a PMO leader. So let's dive into, why is this the most important meeting? Well, first of all, the project prioritization meeting has a big impact on the success rate of your projects right across the portfolio. Now, I'll talk about why in a minute, but it has a big impact on the success rates of your projects. So there is a direct link, and this is really important, many people miss this. There is a direct link between the projects you select, the project prioritization process, and the success or failure of the projects across your portfolio. Second one is that the portfolio exists purely and simply, your project portfolio exists to support your organization achieving its strategic goals. And your ability to achieve those strategic goals is defined in this project prioritization meeting. It is the single meeting, the single process where you define your ability to achieve those strategic goals. And then the third one, and for many people on this webinar, it may be the most important one, is that this meeting, this project prioritization meeting that you have, actually has a direct impact on your career, can affect it positively or negatively. So let's go and look at each one of those really quickly. So project prioritization and project failure. The first thing, and there are a number of ways in which project prioritization affects project success or failure. There are just a couple here. There's a blog, I'll share the link with you in a second. But there are several ways that it affects it. The first one is that if you're picking the right projects, strategically important projects, and strategically important projects are ones that remain important, right? That's key. Many projects that get into the pipeline, into the portfolio, were important on the day that they were picked, but actually weren't really strategically important. And a couple of months later, the execs lost interest and you've lost executive sponsorship. That has a direct impact on your ability to deliver that project. And it happens all the time. I can give you so many examples. Another reason that it affects project success rates is that if you have too many projects in your portfolio, and I hear that complaint all the time. As a PMO leader, I've got too many projects in my portfolio, or I don't have enough resources. Same thing. If you have too many projects in your portfolio, it increases the risk of failure because your resources are spread too thin, they're not focused, they make mistakes, and so forth. So there's been some research that showed that when you pick good strategically aligned projects, they're 54% more likely to succeed, right? So it's not just me waving my arms around. There's actually some research here. And I want to show you a little video. If you've listened to some of my webinars before, you may know or you may recall that I used to do a lot of rowing. And actually it was on this stretch of river in Oxford. And there's a unique kind of race in Oxford and Cambridge and maybe one or two other places in the world called bumps racing, where one crew chases another. And occasionally this happens. You just get these mega pile-ups. It's really horrible. But watch the Cox there. It falls in. It's fantastic. This is a great clip. But what you'll notice is that once one accident happens, others happen right after it. They pile in. And the same thing happens in a project portfolio. Once a project starts to go wrong, that project sucks more and more resources and puts other projects at risk. Okay, that's my kind of fun video. And the point of that video is that when When you have too many projects in your portfolio, it increases the chances of one project going wrong, and that triggers a chain reaction where then a whole bunch of projects start going wrong. You can read more about this in this blog. If you go to our website and search for projects failing, why, in the blog section, you can read there's a whole article on this idea there. The next point is about strategic value. Now, if you look at this child here, great, energetic, enthusiastic, he's going to build something. But the height of the tower that he can build is limited by the blocks that he's got available to him. He can't, if he stacks all those blocks up, that's it. He can't go any higher. And it's the same thing with projects, right? Each project adds a certain amount of value. And if you select a bunch of projects that only have a certain amount of, have the potential to deliver a certain amount of value, you can't possibly deliver any more than that. So obviously you want to try and maximize the potential value of that portfolio to the organization right up front. Now, that sounds easy. A lot of people think that that's the same as saying you're going to maximize the return on investment or the net present value or something like that. But it really isn't. It's much more interesting than that, and a little bit more difficult to pull off successfully. Because what you're trying to maximize is strategic value. Part of that is financial value. But there are other strategic drivers within your business that are equally important. So I've got another little video I'm going to share with you. And in this video, what I've done is dropped a bunch of toothpicks on the table. And the length of the toothpick represents the financial benefit of that project. But the direction of the toothpick represents the strategic direction of the project. And I'm just going to pause it right here. I'm going to pause it, hopefully. There we go, pause it right there. So what you'll see here is that when you lay them all end to end, we actually haven't moved very far from our starting point, which was just here. In fact, we've gone backwards a bit. We've ended up over here. And the reason is that even though every toothpick adds financial value, some of them are pulling in the right direction strategically, and others are pulling in the wrong direction strategically, and they're undoing the good of the projects that are pointing in the right direction. So getting that strategic alignment sorted out up front is really important, and it's not difficult to do if you have the right tools, but it is a very specific thing that you need to do. Okay, now we get to the bit that everybody's going to be interested in, which is the career piece of this. The bottom line is, it's the old cliche that first impressions last, and for many of the executives in the room, in the big meeting, right, the big project selection meeting, this is the only chance that they have to see you in action and to see the output and to touch and feel the output of the PMO organization. And so whatever impression you make now is the impression that they have for the whole year, and probably for multiple years. And so these are the people who make decisions like funding, not just funding projects, but funding organizations like the PMO. These are the people. There was some data a while ago that said 72% of PMOs were being called into question by the executives of the organization. These are the people who are calling the PMOs into question. So this is your opportunity to show that the PMO adds value, and that you personally add value to the organization and to the process. So if you run this meeting well, if you prepared well, if the meeting goes well, it can really improve your career progression and help you sell the PMO to those executives. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to jump across and show you what I think a good meeting looks like. And it really comes down to good preparation and to delivering real value to the executives in that meeting. So this is our product, the Transparent Choice product. And I'm going to use this to sort of make a few points about how to run a good meeting and what a good meeting looks like. There are probably other ways that you can do this. I would always recommend you use our product, but I would say that, wouldn't I? but the point here is there are some core themes that you can pull from this, that even if you don't use our software, you can improve the quality of your meeting. So the first one is, and this is the most important message, is that you need to talk in the language that the executives want to hear. Talk in their language, not in your language. So the language that they think about is about value and strategic alignment. So that's what this axis is on this plot, and on cost. So here's the cost. So we can see straight away projects up here are good value for money. They're offering lots of value with not much cost, and projects down here are adding not a lot of value, and they're very expensive. Now, on this particular graph, a circle means that the project is selected. A square means it's available, and a cross means it's been rejected. So we can see straight away that we've got a circle down here, which we shouldn't have, and we've got a cross up here. A square up here, and we've got a cross up here. So these two should probably be in the portfolio, and this one should be out. And we had a customer, a government customer in Australia, go through this process recently. And they had a picture that looked very similar to this with projects down here. And these were big pet projects that had been pushed by senior executives that they tried to kill off in various ways because everybody could see they weren't adding value apart from the executive who was sponsoring it, of course. And when they saw this view of it, those projects just naturally died off, and the resources were reallocated to things that were going to add a lot more value. So this is kind of the first thing. Executives want to see value for money. They want to see, how is my portfolio balanced across the organization? So we've got different organizations here, and we can see how many projects are supporting them, and we can change, and we can go and look at this broken down by requester, because it may be that not only are these people requesting, so we want to make sure that everybody's reasonably happy, because otherwise they won't buy into the portfolio, and they'll try and go around you and find ways to get the job done anyway. But also these people are probably going to be your executive sponsors, so you want to make sure that they're not overloaded. So, Thomas Jefferson here, maybe we need to think about whether he can handle more than one project in the year as an executive sponsor. So you can look at that broken out in any number of ways, and that lets you balance your portfolio. But at the same time, while you're going through this iterative process of selecting projects, we can see up here that we're tracking in real time how many person days against our total capacity. So we've got 1,500 person days allocated, and we've got 1,600 person days capacity. We can see what the budget is that we're spending versus the budget we have, and we can see this one's red, so we've exceeded our budget on this one. So in this case, we've got two different budgets and a resource pool of people, and you can add more. You can add more of these metrics, these constraints. You can add more of the scatter plots. You can add more bar charts. But the point is, you make this your own, speaking the language that your executives want to speak. And you make it concise, you make it clear, you make it interactive so that they can iterate towards an answer. And if you can give them something like this, they're going to love that meeting. They're going to get a lot from it, and you're going to walk away with a good portfolio. Now, to get to this point, there's quite a lot of work, and most PMO leaders that we speak to are using a lot of Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations to get to this point, and lots of email flying around. And you can certainly do it that way, but it takes a lot of effort. We hear of this process of collecting project requests and documenting and evaluating projects running up to this meeting, taking a full-time person, which is crazy. So part of what we do is we also provide you with a really nice online environment to streamline that whole process. So it's a nice little Kanban. You can onboard projects. You can get projects, project requests online rather than via a spreadsheet. You can collect information as you're going from stage to stage in the evaluation. If we open one of these guys up, you can see a whole audit trail of what's happened to that particular project request, what data's been entered, by whom, when's it been changed. You can send out emails with forms built into them, online forms, so that you can collect data. So for example, you can send one out to a senior project manager and have them do a risk assessment on the on the project and do it all online. Now, this is really important because then if you're doing it online, not only are you spending less time sending emails and figuring out what emails are about, you're also saving a lot of time because you don't have to aggregate all the data. You don't have to pull data from spreadsheet to spreadsheet. And of course, when someone comes in at the very last minute to change some data, as they always do the day before the big meeting, you don't have to stay up till midnight getting it ready, because so long as you're using a good online tool instead of spreadsheets, it means that preparing for the actual meeting is as simple as opening up the dashboard. The data is always current. And so you don't need to stay up till midnight updating data. So if you do that, if you move as much of the process online and make it much more efficient, get a single point where you can pull data in, collect data in a rational way, use experts to evaluate your projects so that the data you're presenting to the executive team can be trusted and is believable. And then talk in their language. Use something like this to talk in your executive's language. If you do all of that, you're going to have a great meeting and you're going to get a great outcome. And that is good for your company. It's good for the project success rates. And ultimately, it's good for the PMO and for your career. So let's dive on back to the slides just for a second, just to finish off. This is the last slide. And what I want to say to you is treat this meeting as a performance. This is not just a meeting, but it's a performance. It's an opportunity to engage people in the business, to get them excited about what's going on, to get them involved, absolutely, and to be part of the process, but make it a performance. Because if people walk out of that room having enjoyed the process that you took them through, having got value from it, by talking in their language and giving them that great data, if you can do that, then they're going to walk out of that room with a really positive impression of you and of the PMO organization. They're going to have confidence that they've picked good projects and they're going to support those projects throughout the year. And ultimately, that leads to success. So that's it. I promised a pretty short one. I think that's around about 15 minutes or so. Come and check out our website, transparentchoice.com. The blog is full of other really great bits of information, and the rest of the website has some useful tools to help you get ready for the planning meeting. Very much for joining us, and now I will open it up to questions.